This podcast is powered by the pros at Paschal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPaschal.com.
Chris, you lose a lot last year for your LSU. Malik Neighbors. You think about Brian Thomas Jr., Jaden Daniels, a Heisman Trophy winner, guys on the D-line. Have they reloaded in the offseason, or is this going to be an interesting season ahead for LSU?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. It feels like LSU is not, like, if you talk to people around the program, people who cover the team, like, they're not too concerned about the offense. And it's saying a lot, considering you're losing the Heisman Trophy winner in Jaden Daniels. But Garrett Nussmeyer's been around so long, and he's played some that, you know, they feel pretty good about him. And obviously the offensive line shapes up to be one of the best in the country, not only the SEC with Will Campbell and Emory Jones on the outsides. And then they got some wide receivers that played a good bit. Kyron Lacey was kind of the number 3 last year. He steps into the 1 role now. Chris Hilton is a guy they've had around for a while. They brought in a couple transfers, Xavier Thomas from Mississippi State, C.J. Daniels from Liberty. So, you know, that combined with the backfield, Josh Williams is back for like his 17th year. I think that guy came in under Nick Saban at LSU. But he's been hanging around a while. Caleb Jackson was their freshman running back from a year ago that they got excited about. So I feel like most LSU fans are excited about the offense, despite all they lost. The big question is the defense going to be any better? And they were abysmally bad last year, historically bad.
So, Chris, Arkansas gets them at night. I know a lot of Arkansas fans were happy to see that. They were hoping to get Texas at night as well. One of the things I was kind of surprised that it didn't always seem like that the SEC or others treat the Arkansas-LSU rivalry of any significance. Are you surprised that they have kind of made that a priority of sorts with the additions of Texas and Oklahoma?
Well, it's one that, I mean, look, LSU has kind of owned the rivalry here in recent years, right? I think it's 7 of the last 8 or something that they've won. They've had Arkansas's number, and obviously it's coincided with some down years for the Arkansas program. But, no, man, the LSU-Arkansas has always been a fun game. It's always been even years when LSU is pretty good. It's a game that's a thorn in their side that – has given them problems. So, no, it definitely is one that needs to be back as I think a night game every year in both arenas.
Chris, how do Tiger fans and those you're around, how do they feel about Texas and OU coming into the league?
I think most fans are kind of wait and see. You know, let's see what they bring. I'll tell you this, doing Locked On SEC, the comments I've gotten in recent months from Texas and Oklahoma fans, I mean, they are coming in acting like their you-know-what doesn't stink. I mean, they are coming in. Oh,
that's nothing new.
Particularly Texas fans. And here's what's so funny is, and I'm going to preach this all week long, is I think they're a little bit overrated, Texas. You know, I think everybody's buying in and ready to jump on the bandwagon because they went to the playoff last year. But go look at Sark's track record. His best season at Washington was 8-4. His best season at USC was 9-4. His best season at Texas prior to this year was 8-5. 12-2 was the outlier. So, like, I'm not ready to buy in like that's who Sark is every year. I think he's more of an 8-9 win coach a year, and that's really good in college football. Like, if he does that, great. But I think a lot of fans are looking at it going, guys, there's going to be an adjustment here. You don't just go from a Big 12 schedule to an SEC schedule and just march through it. And I get it, Texas got an easier draw when you look at the opponents. But in the same realm, like, dude, this isn't Baylor and Kansas you're playing anymore. Like, looking at a road trip to Fayetteville and just putting W next to it, like, think twice. That, you know, this comes on the heels, I believe, after they play Georgia, after they play Oklahoma. Like, the toll of an SEC schedule hurts you.
Yeah, we've talked about how it's going to change the recruiting dynamics in this league. LSU's always had great recruiting grounds close to campus, but they have snuck over and got some players out of Texas in the past, and I'm sure Texas will like to do that. How do you view the dynamics with A&M, Texas, LSU, Arkansas, all kind of working in that Arklatex down there?
Yeah, I mean, they've been, there's a couple guys on the Texas roster that had a Final Two of A&M in Texas, or a Final Two of LSU in Texas. I mean, Ryan Wingo, their big 5-star wide receiver they brought in, was down to LSU in Texas and picked Texas. So, there's a lot of guys we're going to see, in the recruiting ranks that are it's down to Texas and another SEC school, and we'll see who they pick. But LSU's always dipped into the Houston area. They've always recruited well there. A&M, obviously, they do their thing. It's a lot of kids, choose between LSU and A&M. So I think, it'll be interesting, the dynamic. I don't think it changes a whole lot in terms of recruiting. Like, Sark was already starting to recruit at a high level a year ago before they even got to the SEC. So we'll see what happens. But, yeah, man, I keep looking at that Texas team and just, like, everybody's just assuming they're going to be one of the best teams in the SEC and pencil them in Georgia. And I'm like, dude, like, you lost a ton. You lost Byron Murphy, Tavondre Sweat on the defense. You lose your D-line coach, Bo Davis. You lose your entire receiving core. Like, we just assume because Quinn Ewers is back, they're just going to be the same. I have a hard time seeing that.
I hope you're right, but I am one of those people in that camp that thinks they're going to be good. And Arkansas fans are very familiar with the name Wingo. Ryan Wingo, like you said, going to Texas. His older brother Ronnie was a part of some Bobby Petrino teams back in the day. Would have loved to have him as an Arkansas Razorback. Just didn't go that way. So you referenced Atlanta in the SEC championship. I mean, for the last several years, you've had the West and the East, and it's pretty easy to figure out who's going to Atlanta. How do you think it's going to shake out this year with no divisions, 16 teams? There's probably realistically only 5 that are going to that have a chance to actually wind up there. How does that shake out with tiebreakers and everything?
Well, that's going to be the thing. Is tiebreaker is going to be the head-to-head is going to matter big time. I think Georgia. I mean, most of us can agree. Georgia's probably going to go either 12-0 or 11-1. I know their schedule's tough, but, like, it's Georgia. Kirby's on a mission. I think he wants nothing more than to say they didn't get the three-peat, but if they go 3 out of 4, I mean, we're talking dynasty in Athens. So I think Georgia's going to be in there. The other one is who's going to be the number 2. I think we're going to have 3 or 4 SEC teams that are 10-2 at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to be looking back and going, okay, well, this team beat this team, so they're in, but this team lost to this team. And I think a lot of that's going to come into play here because when you look at Missouri and Ole Miss's schedules, they're super easy. Like, I think that even if both of them lose their 2 toughest games, you're 10-2. Ole Miss's 2 toughest games are against home against Georgia and at LSU. They lose both of those. Okay, you're 10-2. Yeah. If they win one of those, they're 11-1. So that one will be very interesting. The old joke used to be never ask an Ole Miss fan directions to Atlanta. They don't know because they've never been there. This might be the year that Lane Kiffin gets through and Ole Miss actually gets to Atlanta.
But is the SEC championship game? I can't think of a better word than overrated, but overstated now with the playoff. I mean, you're talking 3 or 4 teams at 10-2 or better. Mm-hmm. I mean, just getting in the 12-team playoff is probably going to be a much higher standard for programs than making Atlanta anymore.
Well, it becomes the SEC basketball tournament. Who the hell cares about that anymore? Right. Like, most teams are like, we just want to get in the NCAA tournament. I don't give a damn about the SEC tournament. So
and there's a bye with a championship and home, but you got to get on that 12-team bracket. That's what ultimately matters.
Hear me out on this. A quick hypothetical. Georgia goes 11-1. Let's just say, I don't know. Let's just say Texas goes 10-2, and they go to play Georgia in a rematch in the SEC championship. Ole Miss and Missouri are both sitting there at 10-2. They're not playing for an SEC title, but they get an extra week to rest.
And not get injured.
Texas then loses to Georgia, and they drop to 10-3. When the selection committee gets together for their 12-team playoff, are they going to take one of the 10-2 SEC teams that didn't play and jump the 10-3 team that just took a loss to Georgia? Like, there's a realistic argument here to say, like, it's better not to go to the SEC championship. Why do I want to play an extra game when these guys are getting a week of rest?
So you mentioned again the teams that could possibly wind up there. One of my hot takes, and a lot of Arkansas fans listening right now are not going to agree with this. I would actually like to see Ole Miss or Missouri win a championship this year because I think that lends the idea that Arkansas could do it too. Those are not traditionally rich programs. You mentioned the fact that LSU or Ole Miss has never been to Atlanta, much less win an SEC championship prior to it being in Atlanta. Then you think about Missouri, who went to Atlanta twice in 3 years when they entered the league, but hasn't won yet. I think that having the idea of one of those 2 teams winning this year gives Arkansas fans hope that, hey, they can do it. Why can't we? You fall in line with that.
They'll never get a schedule as easy as Missouri's. That's why.
I get that, but also in the same realm, Ty, like, I think you just want to make the playoff. I mean, I don't. Yeah. Again, I don't think getting to Atlanta doesn't mean as much as it used to. In fact, I really wonder what's going to be the future of championship games. I mean, I get it's money, so they're never going to go away. But I think some conferences may start to look at it and go, "What's the point? Why are we making this harder on ourselves?" ACC saying we want to get 3-4 teams into the playoff. Like, we don't care if.
Do you think it's a lock? The SEC gets 3 this year.
I think it's a lot they get 3.
Okay.
I've had some people asking, you think we'll get 5? I'm like, no, because they did the stupid thing where they said the top 4 teams are all conference champions. Like, no, stop. It should have been this simple. The season ends, the conference, or the committee gets together, and they rank teams 1 through 25. Why? I don't know why they still do 1 through 25. It's stupid. All we care about is 1 through 12. But really, that last rankings, 1 through 12, should just be the 12-team playoff. And if there's 6 SEC teams in there, so be it. But no, we got to play fair. Oh, the ACC champion. What about the Big 12 champ? They might be 8-4, but you automatically move to the front of the line, sir. Like,
because the model was created with the idea of 5 power conferences, and now there's
4.
2.5.
Yeah, it's
not
silly.
even 4.
I just hate that mindset of everybody gets a turn. Everybody here, you're a champion. Like, a 4-loss Big 12 champion jumps a 2-10-2 SEC teams.
Yeah, think about, so Chris, for example, Clemson opens up against Georgia in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. In that Week 1 matchup. Let's say Georgia just blows them out by 28, but Clemson goes on to win the ACC. Does anyone really think that that's like a top 4 team outside of let's say Georgia's won an Ole Miss or an LSU or a Texas or something? And then the second or third, or maybe even 4th SEC team is probably still better than Clemson in that case. So
no, you're absolutely right. And I've seen a few scenarios where a 9-4 Arizona is in the top 4 seeds because they go 8-4 in the regular season, win the Big 12 championship, and they're in at 9-4.
All right, so tell me why LSU is going to be a factor in this year.
Well, again, the offense. I mean, I just feel like they're going to sustain. They're not going to be as electric as they were last year, but Nussmeier's a gunslinger. I call him Brett Favre. He giveth and he taketh away. I think a lot of games you'll look at a Garrett Nussmeier box score and see he threw for 280 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. I think he's going to turn the ball over a lot, but I think he's going to throw a ton of touchdowns. So, but again, it all comes down to that LSU defense. They've got to play better.
And while they lost a lot of starters on offense, they got mainly all returning players in their projected 2 deep at starter. So not a lot of transfers. The defensive side of the ball, maybe a couple in there, but a lot of returning players that were in the system last year that will probably be in starting roles.
Yeah, they have Major Burns back in one safety spot. They bring in Jordan Gilbert, the safety from Texas A&M. I think that fills a hole there. The big question is young DBs last year. Another year older, can they step up to the plate? Javian Toviano is one. Ashton Stamps is another. Like, that's the big question. And in this league, we know you got to cover. I mean, it's become what used to be 20 years ago, a defensive league, and you could win a slobber knocker 17-14. These days in the SEC, it's like you get the 40 points, you're going to win that game.
And you mentioned Nussmeier there. I wanted to double check, but I went back in that 2021 box score. That was who Arkansas beat back in Baton Rouge years ago. So couldn't remember. I thought that was him, but it's been a while since Arkansas played against him. And again, 3 years ago, basically. So.
Yeah, he's kind of. I think that was that year where they were playing musical chairs. Max Johnson, T.J. Finley, and so they just had a bunch of hodgepodge of guys. I will say this though: when LSU lost the SEC championship game 2 years ago, Jane Daniels came out of that game. Garrett Nussmeier played basically the whole second half. Mm-hmm. Georgia still had their starters in, and he was flinging it around the field on those Georgia DBs. Kamari Lassiter ended up being a second-round pick this year. Like, I think that experience is invaluable. And, man, I mean, if you watch the spring game for LSU, I get it's a spring game, but, like, he looked pretty damn electric.
Last thing, did you get the deluxe version of NCAA football? Are you going to purchase it this week? Is that on the docket?
I got a hard copy coming in. I got the digital copy pre-ordered.
Okay.
But I left the PS5 back in Houston, so it's got to wait till Friday.
So work will actually get done.
Yeah, it's got to wait till Friday. Although I've seen some people have said they're going to have some out here on the Radio Row, so we may not get much done.
All right. Again, Chris Gordy, Sports Talk 790 in Houston, host of Locked On the SEC and the program director of 790 as well. Chris, we appreciate you talking LSU, and Greg Sankey. We'll hear from Commissioner in about hour 45.
Appreciate it, guys.
BetOnline is your #1 source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.